I definitely enjoyed myself and maybe did have this rock star persona. I think at one point somebody called me the Dennis Rodman of soccer. I did like to have fun and go out. Never did it the night before a game or day before a game or anything like that. So at least I gave myself the day window. Can't promise you on 2 days before.
Greetings, folks, and welcome to Inside American Soccer. I'm your host, Matt Doyle, holding down the fort for Tom Boger. I'm joined by one of the greatest players in U.S. soccer history, a veteran of 3 World Cups, Tab Ramos, and we are bringing back U.S. soccer legend and Tab's favorite player, and also mine, Clint Mathis. Cletus, thank you for joining us, my friend.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
So on today's show, we're going to interview Clint. We're going to talk about his most memorable moments, both for club and country. We're going to talk about his upbringing a little bit. He came from Conyers, Georgia, outside of Atlanta. Not traditionally known as a hotbed, but he may have paved the way a little bit as we see more Southerners breaking into the top flight, not just in the U.S., but overseas as well. Highs and lows. Plus, we are going to ask him to name his all-time U.S. men's national team starting 11. Tab, did you slip him the envelope to make sure that your name is in that 11?
I tried, but Clint always goes with the heart, so I'm sure he's going to pick whoever he thinks is right. And by the way, I'm going to be totally okay with that. It's great. It's just great to have Clint on. I've been fortunate enough to sort of end my career with Clint being my roommate for the last couple of years, and I truly enjoyed seeing his rise into stardom. Not that he wasn't already a little bit of a star when he came to the MetroStars from LA, but I think once he joined the New York team and the MetroStars at the time, that's sort of where he really took off.
Absolutely, for sure.
So I was going to transition back to your upbringing, because we'll get into the MetroStars bit in a minute. I just want to talk about the fact that you grew up in Conyers, Georgia in the 1980s. It's a college football hotbed, right? It's not like it's a great basketball area. It's not a place. It's not Kearney. It's not where Tab grew up. It's not Southern California. How did you come to the game, and how did you end up being such a complete and technical player, given the standards?
Yeah, so I mean, I think it's kind of funny. I have 2 older brothers and an older sister. So it goes myself, then my sister's 5 years older, then I have an 8.5-year older brother and a 10-year older brother. So I was definitely the mistake that happened, but that's okay. I don't mind that. But yeah, being around my older siblings, I think really just gave me that competitiveness, drive, and things of that sort. And my brothers, they were big time wrestlers. They also played football, but they also played soccer. And then when I would go to their high school games, I would be the ball boy. So I was around soccer. I was around all sports. So I played literally everything, under the sun, as far as kids could play. I mean, I did golf, I did bowling, I did wrestling, I did basketball. They wouldn't let me do football, because one of my brothers got hurt. So that's the one sport I could never be allowed to play. But there was something fascinating about soccer that, granted, you don't use your hands, and then be able to, do the things that you can do with your feet was pretty foreign. I think to a lot of people, especially in the South. So it was one of those things that, I'd like to be indifferent. Not many people were doing it, so I just looked at something like that and really enjoyed it. So I just continued to play that, and at a young age, it was something that kind of clicked with me. I still continue to play all the other sports, and then I think it was after my junior year of high school, I used to play basketball and football, and then I decided to just stick with soccer and focus on that after my junior year of high school, and everything else took off and told the story itself there.
Well, I have to say, and I'm not sure how you did that, but you just mentioned that you continue to play basketball for a little while. But I'm sure you remember at Keene University we had the basketball court that before the coaches arrive, everybody used to go and play. And I want to say that I played, and although I wasn't a terrible basketball player, I could play. but to be able to see how you play basketball and how Tim Howard played basketball was certainly a different level. And I have to say, and sometimes, and I say this about Tony Meola sometimes too, there's just certain guys that are just great at every sport, and Clint happens to be one of those.
Tab, when you met Clint, right after that trade from the Galaxy to the MetroStars, and for those who aren't aware, it was a really convoluted, very early MLS trade, one where there were deals made in dark rooms by people nobody knows, and that's how Clint ended up with the MetroStars and kind of helped save a franchise that had been in the doldrums for a year. But Tab, what was your impression of him? Because you knew he was an attacking player, but then he comes and you see how versatile he is and how skillful he is. And was it just instantly like, oh, I have a kindred spirit now on the field with me?
Well, at first, I think I had a little bit of that arrogance that we all seem to have, in New Jersey as part of everyday life, right? Which is, okay, so we're getting some player from LA who's from Georgia. What do I care really? Like
Right.
that. And then you realize the ability, right? And then you realize not only the ability, but then you realize his way to connect with people, and you realize the charisma that Clint had immediately when he walked into a room. Not everybody's like this. I think Clint had a lot of special qualities like that, where automatically when you walked in the locker room, he was just very well liked. And I think that's something that at the time we were building a nice team at the time. If Clint, if you remember the year 2000, I think we had the best team in the league. We happened not to win that year, but I think we actually should have won MLS Cup. I think that's the year that Kansas City won. And we got knocked out by Chicago. But my point was, we were building something good at the time, and I think Clint was one of those pieces that became the glue between sort of the American players and the foreign players. We had Lothar Matthäus, we had some big superstar guys, but I think Clint's charisma matched with his talent was the glue that kind of brought that team together.
Yeah, that was a special team. I mean, like you said, you brought up Lothar. I got to play a little bit closer between Tab and Adolfo Valencia, who was an unbelievable player. So, that means a lot saying that, I was that glue there. But I mean, I think all these teams have these little pieces that are needed. And Tab was right. That team was being a team that was a good team being built. And if I was the last piece to come in there, I was happy to be that piece because it was a great transition and to see how good that team really was. Obviously, going up against a team like Chicago, which was a great team, first year franchise, and had these unbelievable European players or whatever. So Bob Bradley did a good job building that team as well. But I definitely think we had the best team, and we were the team to watch out for, especially that year.
I remember you kind of hit that team like a thunderbolt when you arrived. It was every week you were scoring, you were assisting, and you're kind of the skeleton key that ended up unlocking a lot of the attacking stuff that you early in the season. I think everybody had seen it, but there was just that one centerpiece missing, and that's the role you kind of played, Clint. And I guess the high point of all that was a hot summer night in Dallas in August of 2000, and you went out and you set an MLS record, scoring 5 goals, and Tab, of course, was on the field with you that night, and it just kind of all came together for you and for the MetroStars on that day.
Yeah, what's so funny is, every once in a while when this gets asked, I like telling this story because I think it's a good life lesson too, whether it's kids or anybody that is listening or watching or whatnot. But you would think that everything was just going in my favor that day. But at the beginning, it's hot, it's muggy, everything like that. And I think I took 6 shots that game. I could be wrong, but you can ask the statistician. But the very first shot, I think I might have hurt the popcorn guy really bad because it was so far away from goal in the stand somewhere. And, the lesson learned there is don't worry about what happened, worry about the next play. Because you can't do anything about what just happened, and literally everything just laid in place. And the next 5 attempts I put at goal were in the back of the net. And to add to that story, I think we were winning. It was either 3-0 or three. I think it might have been 3-1 in the locker room, and everybody was happy. I just had a hat trick, so I'm happy. Everything's going good, and then all of a sudden we come out, and Dallas scores 3 goals. We're losing 4-3. And I am absolutely just livid, and I'm screaming about the defense. I think I was yelling at Mike Pecky at one time. I was like, "Get this crap together! What are we doing?" And then, I was able to go in and score 2 more to put us up 5-4. And then these guys were literally trying to kill me. So I asked the coach, hey, we only got a few more minutes left, dude. These guys are going to be breaking my legs soon. Crowd was booing me and everything. So I was able to get out of there unscathed. And then I think Adolfo scored a 6th goal for us to win 6-4. So one of those games that I won't forget. It's pretty cool to be able to do that. Not many people can say that they scored 5 goals in a game, so I'll take that. But the most important thing was getting the win out of there. And till this day, I think that the Rose Bowl, or excuse me, the Cotton Bowl, is probably one of my favorite places to play. Even there, nobody gets to play there too much anymore.
Yeah, well, it's easy to define it as your favorite when you score 5 goals, right?
Well, the thing is Dallas has always been my favorite team to play, because I think that year we played them like 3 times, because we would play them in the playoffs or whatever happened. But I think we played them 3 times that year, and I think I scored 10 goals on them that season. So they're my favorite team to play. That's why I like the Cotton Bowl as well.
No, and by the way, Matt, you saying that night in Dallas, we wish it was that night in Dallas.
It was
actually
daytime.
It was actually like a 4 in the afternoon, 100-degree weather day at the Cotton Bowl. So that was extremely
It wasn't night
difficult.
until the whistle blew and the game was over. Then it might have been night.
Exactly. Hey, for me, to be honest, I think I played the whole game, but I think it was night right around the 25th minute.
It's because your eyes were closed.
Yeah.
I'll let Clint do all the heavy lifting on that one.
Yep.
But then it came back to bite you a year later, Tab, when Clint scored the 2001 goal of the year for the MetroStars on a terrible field, and Clint chose not to pass to you instead. Are you bitter about that now, 25 years later? Or do you think he made the right choice?
No, I'm trying to figure out how you found that out. You must have read that somewhere, because I know that Clint dribbled everybody like down the whole field, right? That's the goal. It was that Giant Stadium. He dribbled everyone, and then I think the goalkeeper's coming out, but I'm open. I made the run the whole way. I ran like 80 yards with Clint, and I'm open in front of the goal, and he decided to shoot it. But I mean,
I still to this day don't even know that I knew that you were there. Because the funny thing is like people are like, well, why would you even want to dribble that far when you look up and you see 2 or 3 people in front of you? If I remember correctly, we actually had someone ejected, so I think we were down a man, and then we had a corner kick, and so I was at the top of the box and the ball came out, and so I was there with the ball, and I was like, well, I have no one to kick it up to because we're down a man, so I just took off dribbling, and I was like, I'm just going to keep going.
Right.
It was a cow pasture. It was not a field that was in the best condition, but you scored that one, and then you turned your jersey around in celebration. You showed your last name to the crowd. It was, I mean, there was a sort of a magical, almost rock star type of thing to it right there. And was that your mindset in those days? Like, okay, let's put on a show. Let's make sure these people are entertained.
So I was definitely different on the field than I was off. I was definitely more mellow off the field. I always tell everybody that once you cross that line, I'll tackle my mother if she's on the other team, but I'll pick her up and take her for a beer after the game. And that's the way I was, or tried to be with everybody, throughout the league. You're my enemy when we're playing against each other. It's about going out, doing what I need to take, nothing like dirty or anything like that per se, but try to get the job done. So I was very an emotional type of player, very energetic type of player. So I like to talk smack. I like to get crowd involved, or most of the time the crowd was booing me or whatever. I would say something back to them. So I was one of those guys, but definitely different on the field, wearing that jersey than I was off the field for sure.
And I think that's why the crowd identified so much with Clint because of at the time, and I'm not sure, Matt, if you were, I guess you might have been a fan at the time, right? If you were in the area, but the crowd absolutely loved Clint and loved his commitment on the field. I mean, although you can tell by his demeanor what he's like off the field, he was always this way. He didn't just become this way now on the field. He had no friends, and I think that's what the fans in this area really identify with the guys that go on the field and just do anything to win and don't care about having friends. And I think that's why there was that immediate connection with the crowd.
Yeah, I still don't have friends.
Not true. You got at least two, Clint. I promise. That connection with the crowd and, of course, the way you played in 2000 opened up doors to the national team, and you ended up being one of the faces of the national team for the 2002 World Cup, even coming off a devastating injury. And then you don't start the first game, but the second game of the group stage, you started in South Korea against the host nation, and you stood on the field for the national anthem, that big flag behind you. What was that feeling like for you?
It was one of the best feelings ever. I mean, especially how it ended up turning out. It's a game I'll never forget. Just the way that everything played out. Playing it was the first time that it was hosted by two countries, Japan and South Korea, but playing the host country in their city, in Seoul, being able to go and play against them. You look around at that time, for people that don't know, that was called the Red Sea, because they would all wear their red jerseys out in the city and everything, and it literally looked like red water flowing through the cities because there were so many people. But I remember back in those games, you couldn't hear anything. I mean, even if we were, pretty much standing next to each other, it was hard to hear each other. And it was a loud game. The South Koreans were like robots running their tails off. And then being able to get that unbelievable ball from John O'Brien to lay down and be able to take that first touch and finish the second one was like the biggest sigh of relief. If you go back and watch that after I score and I run to the corner flag, you see like Brian McBride hugging me, and then I think Claudio puts his arms around us, and Claudio's like, just stay here in the corner, stay here in the corner, so we could all get our breath back, because the South Koreans, they were crazy fit and running everywhere. But the one thing I remember the most is, and I tell this to people all the time, how they always ask, how is it, to feel where 80,000 people are cheering for you? I mean, what is that feeling? And I was like, well, that feeling's good, but a better feeling is having 80,000 people root against you and shutting every single one of them up. And that's what happened in South Korea. I mean, we had probably a few hundred people at the game, whether it be family, friends, fans or whatever, on the far other end of the corner, and that's all you could hear. I mean, you could literally almost hear a pin drop in that stadium of how quiet it got, and that's a feeling I'll never forget till the day I die.
That goal against South Korea in the World Cup, that had to be your best moment in a U.S. jersey, or was there another one that stands out for you?
No, for sure. That's definitely the best moment. I mean, I just think the build up, the situation, um, ends up so happening we lose that game, or the next game, because we tied that one. So we beat Portugal, tied that game. That goal actually gets us through, just because of the points that we had, because Portugal ended up losing to South Korea. So South Korea helped us out to get through that. But, if you take all that into account, to be able to score that goal against the host country, uh, um, and be able to put us through out of that group stage, that's definitely the best goal of my national team career for sure.
Tab, how did it feel for you to be watching that one, or to see it on highlights, because it happened at about 3 a.m. New Jersey time?
No, it was it was amazing, truly amazing, and more importantly, because I knew Clint the person, and I knew where he was coming from, and I knew when he celebrated a certain way how he felt. I really felt like I identified with Clint and how he felt in the game. And so I always had a strong connection with Clint that way, and it was really special to me to see him score. And I'll add to what Clint was saying about, standing there for the national anthem. Sometimes when you become a longtime national team player, there are many times when you walk on the field and you have the opportunity to listen to your national anthem. But sometimes you get caught up in, we have to win this game, or we need 2 points here, or we need a point there, or we need 3 points here, right? And you seem to forget really where you are, and who you're representing. You're just, at the end of the day, just playing a game. But I have to tell you this: the World Cup is always different. When you're listening to your national anthem at the World Cup, there's a special feeling that is different than any other game. The whole world is watching, and you're fortunate enough, regardless of how good someone is, or how good you are, or how good the next guy is, that you're so fortunate to be one of 11 people representing your whole country, and that truly is special.
You guys followed that up, the group stage, with a most famous performance in recent U.S. national team history, I think maybe ever, the 2-0 win, the 2-0 over Mexico. Now, you didn't feature in that one, but I imagine the celebration in the locker room afterwards must have been legendary, Clint.
It was amazing. Obviously, there's no blood lost between that rivalry, and it continues to happen nowadays. Being part of that first 2-0 in Columbus, that really kind of started this whole trend type
The
of thing.
pass, the pass to Josh Wolf. I remember that pass. That was
Exactly.
brilliant.
And getting subbed into that because Josh goes in that game to rewind. It's just funny how things pan out, and how I think God looks after you and paves a way for you. But Brian gets his face smashed in, so Josh goes in, and then I think Claudio gets hurt, so then I sub in, and then that's what starts the Dos Cero there with Mexico. But yeah, that game at the World Cup, just watch it from the sideline, but just literally itching, wanting to get in because of everything that's going on with the, Marquez foul against Kobe, and just multiple things of happening. So, a lot of bad blood between those. I think especially, it might not happen as much today. I'm not sure, but those were just some battles against that era of Mexican players and U.S. players. And then the funny thing is yeah, there was a celebration after, not only to be able to win that second round match, but also do it against a team like Mexico, which everybody would always say, hey, yeah, Mexico's better. I think at my stint, I don't think in the games that I've played that I ever lost against Mexico. I didn't get to play in the one where we played at Azteca. I think I was injured or I was out that game or for some reason. But all the other games, never lost to Mexico, and yeah, just to have that feeling to beat them at a World Cup on that world stage was amazing. And then, we may or may not have had some beers ready for us after the game. But the funniest part about the story is after the game, you see all them walk out. They got their wives and their nice purses and everything like that, and kids, and we're just sitting there hanging out, waiting to get on our bus. They take off, and then we get in our bus, have our beer on the bus, and then as we're driving, you see a bus that's pulled over on the side of the road, and we had our caravan of all the security that was going on with Osama bin Laden and everything. So we had all kinds of military police and everything with us because everybody thought that the U.S. team was going to get killed somehow. And so we're going by, and it happens to be the Mexico bus that was pulled over the sidelines or on the side of the road. And then we're all hanging out the windows with our beers, just started cheering like crazy as we're passing their bus. So it was an awesome feeling. It just so happened that it worked out that way, but I guess the plan's always written how it's supposed to. So that was a fun celebration for sure after that victory.
And the next game, the famous Torsten Frings handball on the line. If there was VAR back in the day, that one probably would have been a lot different. Do you believe that you guys would have won if that penalty had been awarded?
I think so. I mean, I think it would have been a game changer. I mean, what a lot of people, I mean, maybe not a lot of people, but it always talks about, it comes up with a handball, this and that. Do I think that we would have won? You never know because I think that what people miss a lot is probably the best player on that field was Oliver Kahn.
Yep.
The guy absolutely had a blinder. It wasn't just that. I mean, we had some really really good chances, and he came up with some unbelievable saves. Would that have been another one that he came up with? We'll never know. But I definitely think that that could have been the straw to break the camel's back. Is if that is called, and then they're already saying or already thinking that hey, the U.S. is all over us right now. Oliver's really the only one that's saving us. We get that penalty, we get that goal. I definitely think it changes the mood of that team and builds that confidence in the U.S. to where you could see a win. And then we win that game. We're back at playing South Korea again in the semifinals of a World Cup. And who would have thought that the U.S. or South Korea would end up being in the finals? So that would have been a fun little story to read about if that happened. But then again, I believe everything happens for a reason, and it just wasn't our time to go further.
And again, the pressure's off, right? Because, against Germany, not expected to win. U.S. is the underdog and playing loose, almost wins the game. And who knows what would have happened on the next one, because it would have been the same, right? All the pressure would have been on the South Koreans if that was going to be the opponent. And with no pressure on, we've always been a team to fear.
Yeah.
Let's hope that we see some of that this summer at the World Cup for the U.S. team, who, of course, will be under some pressure. But for us, it's time for a break. Up next, we'll ask Clint about a current player that reminds him of himself. We'll ask him about his rock star persona, as described by Brian Dunseth back in the day. And in the meantime, we're going to ask you to please rate, review, and subscribe to Inside American Soccer with Tom Bogert and Tab Ramos, wherever you get your podcasts. Okay, folks, welcome back to Inside American Soccer. I'm Matt Doyle, hosting for Tom Bogert. I'm joined, of course, by Tab Ramos, and we're joined by Clint Mathis, the guy who took the MetroStars by storm back in 2000 and then became something of a rock star, as per our good friend Brian Dunseth, who described going to the clubs with you back in the day. Clint, do you
I don't know
you
what he's
recall
talking
any
about.
of this?
I plead the fifth. Nah, no, I definitely enjoyed. I mean, that's I think what caused a lot of drama, throughout my career is going out and doing things that not the normal guy did. But at that time, I was in New York, a small town, Conyers, where I grew up. Moved to LA and then moved to New York City. So I was fortunate enough to meet a lot of influential people um, that allowed me to get to meet some really cool, famous people that I would never normally get to meet, especially in Conyers, unless it was the local bull rider or something. I don't know. But yeah, no, I enjoyed myself. I think that that's what really allowed me to just be that person that was free going out on the field. Was it the best where I could have the longevity in my career, anything like that, especially how you need to take care of your body and stuff? Absolutely not. Would I change anything? Probably not. Because that just gave me that freedom to say, hey, I go out and work hard and I go and do my job. I do everything that I need to do on the field. I should be able to get to enjoy it off the field as well. So maybe I shouldn't have done it as much, but you live life and you learn from life. And no, I definitely enjoyed myself and maybe did have this rock star persona. I think at one point somebody called me the Dennis Rodman of soccer. Um, I don't know if I would go that far. It wasn't like I was doing drugs or anything like that, but I did like to have fun and go out. Never did it the night before a game or day before a game or anything like that. So at least I gave myself the day window. I can't promise you on 2 days before.
Is there a part of the persona, I guess, is the confidence and the swagger that you carried yourself with on the field? And Tab has said, like, there's a difference between Clint on the field and Clint off the field in terms of how open and so, like, even in the midst of enjoying yourself in the way that you so eloquently just described, you were kind of a killer once you got in between the white lines. And is there a player that reminds you of yourself in that way? You see them play and you're like, oh, that's kind of like me.
Ooh, that's kind of tough to say. I mean, a lot of these guys I don't know personally because I mean, I'm not around them or anything like that. That might be one we have to stick a pin in it,
Hmm.
just for a second, and let me think as we're talking a little bit more. But there's a couple guys that might come to mind that is pretty much like a f off type of guy that I think people would pretty much call me as because I was that guy that literally went out there to just try to win. I mean, that's what I was getting paid to do. That's what people care about. They don't care how pretty I look at doing things, and maybe some people do nowadays. But at the end of the day, and I think I learned that, and maybe got a little harder spot on my heart playing in New York is because that's really all they care about. I can go out and hit 5,000 home runs or score 80 goals in a season, but if I'm not winning games, they don't care. They might be like, "Oh yeah, the rest of the team sucks and Clint's great," but that's not the case. They want winners, and I learned that a lot. Going in the New York area and realizing that I was just a small fish in a huge pond, and to go out there and if you're going to put a stamp on something and have to make yourself notice, you got to go out there and you got to win. And it's about doing what you can and everything in your ability to go out there and win. And once you become a winner in that type of area, in that New York area, you're going to be beloved.
That's a great question, Matt, because it's hard to actually ask Clint. Is there a player that particularly reminds you of you, right? Because it's hard to find it from my end. I can tell you that I know the American pool pretty well of players, and if I had to compare somebody to Clint, I would have to say a combination of players, right? So I would have to say, for example, the skill of like Christian Pulisic with the mentality of like a Luna with the speed of like a Balogun where so I'd have to come up with like a bunch of things that would make it into one in order to match that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and a multi-talented player was Clint Mathis, and a guy who learned some, I guess, tough lessons based upon what you were saying in terms of like getting that hardness on your heart from playing in New York. Is there a lesson that you learned while wearing a U.S. jersey that has stuck with you over the years?
I mean, just I mean, you got to enjoy it while you got it. I think my national team career was cut a little short from internal things that we could talk about, but it's not really worth it. I don't think it was due to you know playing ability or anything like that. I think it was personnel and things of that sort, which I think people years down the road later realized that a mistake was made. But yeah, my career ended pretty early with the national team. It was in 2005. Um, Also happened when I came back from Germany to play on Salt Lake, which was not a good situation the first season. So there was a lot of things that happened there. So I think with the national team is just enjoy it while you got it. You don't know when it's going to be taken away from you. In the professional world, people think that the players have all the say so or anything like that. But it's not the case. You look at so many soccer players' careers go in a different direction because they don't mesh with a coach or he's not in their plans or that coach brings in their players that they're loyal. You don't know what's happening behind those closed doors. So enjoy every minute to be able to represent your country, like Tab said, to be one of those 11 guys out on the field with your hand over your heart, playing for a country like the flag, behind me, and just say, hey, this is something special. Nobody cares about the other stuff. Yeah, how many Instagram clicks or whatever the crap they call nowadays, I have no idea, but it's not about that. It's about representing your country and knowing that you're doing something special, and it's going to be something that you'll never forget. The rest of your life as an individual. Other people might forget it, but that's something special that nobody can give you and nobody can take away from you.
And that's a really good point about the national team. So, just taking it back to my own experience. So I happened to be on the national team from 1988 to 2000, but in that period of time there were three World Cups. It was the 90, 94, and 98. And although some people may think, "Oh, that's your generation of players that you came through," there may have been 200 players that were part of that process. And in the end, it was really just Marcelo Balboa, Eric Winalda, and myself that made it through the three World Cups. So sometimes, to Clint's point, sometimes you don't value the moments that you have. And sometimes I get a little bit upset, and I have been over the last 7 or 8 years when we talked about our national team as we're developing players for the next World Cup. And to me, that's not the national team. The national team should always be, who are the best players that we have today? And let's take the best players that we have today and let's go beat that country today. What's going to happen next year, we don't know, because you're going to depend on your moments. You're going to depend on your club. You're going to depend on, there's so many things outside of the national team that you have to depend on in order to get on the national team that is very difficult. Sometimes, long careers on the national team are taken for granted, thinking, hey, so-and-so was a great player, so they must have been on the national team for 10, 12 years. It doesn't always work out that way. There's hundreds of players that go up and down in those periods of time, and it's very difficult. And any time you have an opportunity to play for the national team and put your hand over your heart and listen to the national anthem, you really should truly enjoy it.
Yeah, and next segment, we are going to find out Clint's best 11 for the U.S. men's national team of all time. Guys who put their hand over their heart and enjoyed it and then performed, left their mark on the game here. In the meantime, we're taking a break. Thanks for listening to Inside American Soccer. Please rate, review, and subscribe. We'll be right back. All right, folks, welcome back to Inside American Soccer. All respect to everyone who has ever played for the U.S. men's national team, but we have Clint Mathis here, and we're going to ask Clint to pick his starting 11 to win one match at the World Cup. Everyone's in their prime. Who are the guys you're going with? And I just want our listeners to know that Tab was trying to make sure he was weaseling his way into the squad in the break.
Weaseling.
But with this whole process is on the up and up. I want to assure you, no undue influence is taking place here.
Yes, and just so you know, at break, I did not change any of my people. So I've kept them the same, and this has been done way before this show even started. So you are going to see some bias here. You are going to see some positional changes, but this is who I would go and coach and take to the World Cup, and I think this team would do pretty damn well. So in goal, I'm going to have Tim Howard. Left back, I'm going to have DeMarcus Beasley. Center back, I'm going to have Eddie Pope, paired alongside Pablo Mastroeni. Right back, I'm going to have Steve Cherundolo. I'm going to have two holding midfielders. One's going to be more of an up and down kind of guy. One's going to hold a little bit more. That first one's going to be John O'Brien, who I have to say is probably my favorite U.S. soccer player behind Tab. The next one is going to be Chris Armas. Have to say my favorite holding midfielder to play with between him and Pablo. That's why I put Pablo at center back, because I know he can play center back and he can get forward as well if he needs. Then in front of them, I would have the one and only Tab Ramos. On the left side, pinching in to where DeMarcus could get up and down, would be Clint Dempsey. On the other side, pinching in where Steve could get up and down, would be Landon Donovan. And then up top, we would have the big header, Brian McBride.
Well, first of all, you're too humble. You didn't put yourself in that best 11.
That's why I said I'm coaching this team.
I mean, that's a great lineup. I, if you don't mind, Matt, I'm going to go back to mine so he can see how I laid mine out. Right. So I had Tony.
Go for it.
I had Tony in goal, three defenders: Lalas, Kevin Crowe, who you may not know, and Marcelo Balboa. And then across the midfield, I had you on the right with Harks and Rick Davis as holding mids, and Hugo Perez on the left side. I had Landon as the attacking, more of an attacking mid with Winalda and McBride up front. So we had some.
That's good.
We had
We had
and
a couple
definitely McBride.
overlaps.
Definitely McBride. I mean, McBride
Yeah, no,
was
he's
just a great.
he's
no.
been our really
Yeah.
main, only true number 9 that was good in the air, would hold up the ball, distribute it back, and then start running to get in the box.
Right. And
Get
by the
things
way,
together.
and by the way, we had Dunseth here, a few weeks back, and I asked him to talk a little bit about John O'Brien. Because it's great what you said about John O'Brien, but most fans wouldn't know him, and he was such a great player, and I asked him to talk a little bit more about him so that they get to know him. But yeah, what a great player, right, Clint?
Yeah, he was. I mean, I'm not saying this with any level of joking around. He was probably the most skilled American player I've ever seen.
And he showed it on that famous goal that you scored against South Korea in the 2002 World Cup, dropping a dime. It was a right foot first touch and then a one-touch finish with your left. Am I remembering that correctly, Clint?
That's correct. Yep. And then I don't know how he even got that ball there, because he just threw a basketball through a water hose, because he didn't have much room to do it, and I don't know how he even saw me. But if he could have stayed healthy for a lot longer, I mean, that kid was unbelievable with his feet. He was unbelievable.
There were a lot of ifs from that team back then. Of course, if John O'Brien had stayed healthy, he would have ended up on Barcelona. If things had worked out for Clint Mathis, he would have ended up perhaps on Bayern Munich. But
Well,
in
that was the
between,
league.
Yeah.
I actually had
Yeah.
a signed contract. What a lot of people don't
Wow.
know is we had a weekend off at the MetroStars where we didn't have a game. So I actually flew to Germany and met with Karl-Heinz Rummenigge, Ulionis, and actually signed a contract with them. But the league wouldn't sell me.
yeah,
So
bad
there's
times back in the day.
another story into that one. Put
Yeah.
it this
Yeah,
way.
we'll
That
get
wouldn't
you on
happen-
for another
That
show.
wouldn't happen nowadays. Put it that way.
No, I don't think it would.
But that's okay.
But yeah, Clint, we appreciate you coming and joining us for this show. We all appreciate the memories you gave us in that wonderful 2002 World Cup, and some of us appreciate what you did with the MetroStars as well, including this guy right here. I was in the 101 back in the day. It has been a pleasure having you on. Tab and I, big fans of yours, always and forever. And to our listeners, thank you for being with us on this show and listening to Inside American Soccer. Please rate, review, and subscribe, and we will see you next week.